Hello, friends, and welcome to Jewels of Truth. My name is Daniel Fontenot. What event stands between the world and the judgment? That is the subject of this article. At least that's my intention. And this article was written by, again, A.T. Jones in the periodical The Signs of the Times of August 5th, 1886. So, as always, just take into consideration that the fact that this article is well over 100 years old, but it's still many of the things that are written about in this article still have its significance today, still important for today. And this is a subject of Bible prophecy, whether you realize it or not. There is an event that, especially now, stands between us and the judgment. What has to happen before the judgment or the second coming of Christ? And the title of this article is The Restoration of the Papacy. So this is what Brother Jones has to say. We have seen how that Germany and the United States have acknowledged the sovereignty of the Pope and have noted the movement in Italy follow suit. After Germany and Italy, of the powers of Western Europe, there only remains England, whose acknowledgment would be of any significance. And when Germany and Italy, which have been the most bitter of the opponents of the papacy, are now so ready to bring about a reconciliation on which grants the sovereignty of the Pope, it is not at all difficult to believe that occasion may arise at which England would be ready to engage his good offices by also recognizing his sovereignty, as Germany has done and as Italy desires to do. This will the more readily appear when the motive is seen which has led Germany to humble herself before the Pope, and which is leading Italy to take the same course. This is so clearly stated by Signor Berzari that we shall give it in his own words. He says, "In my mind, the necessity and possibility of the understanding with the papacy follows from the present condition of Italy and the monarchy, both in itself and its relations with other nations, and this all the more, and more particularly, from a consideration of the ever-spreading spirit of anarchy and the condition of political degradation which we all lament in Italy, and which certainly will not be ended by the alternative of right and left, the Italian Parliament, at the helm of state, so long as the ideas hitherto held by these parties are still entertained." And that was in the Monitor of June 23rd, 1886. Brother Jones continues, "This same ever-spreading spirit of anarchy, it was caused by Bismarck to go to Canossa. In his speech in the German Parliament, the Chancellor said that there are political parties in their own assemblies who put forward demands and advocated ideas which would ruin Germany far more quickly than any papal pretensions, and that the Pope is a wise, venerable, and good man, very friendly to Germany, much better disposed to forward the true interests of Germany than some of the politicians in the Prussian Diet and the Reichstag." In these expressions, Bismarck clearly betrays the cause that induced him to seek the friendship of the papacy. Socialism is rife in Germany and has a large representation in the Parliament. It is the socialists who put forward demands and advocate views that would ruin Germany. And so even the Iron Chancellor is compelled to bend and makes haste to enlist the Pope on his side in the impending and imminent contest with the spirit of anarchy. Nor is it alone in Germany and Italy that the spirit of anarchy prevails. Even while we are writing this article, there comes to hand the San Francisco Sunday Chronicle of July 25, 1886, and entitled The Red Spectre. We here insert the first few sentences. Quote, "Socialism is the red spectre of Europe. It is ever in the thought of kings. It clogs the wheels of legislation in parliaments. It alarms the thoughtful and far-seeing, and it is in all European countries a disturbing element in politics and society. Governments, politicians, the press, and writers of books are more and more taking it into account, availing themselves of its influence, or using the material which it furnishes. The question is constantly asked, is it extending? The reasons for believing that it is are many. The strongest is that it is feared. In France, the ministry acts timidly in presence of its occult power. Bismarck, who hoped that his law of 1878 proscribing socialism would accomplish its work and effectually lay the spectre in 5 years, has been compelled to renew it. There are more socialist deputies today in the German parliament than in 1878. In Russia, socialism, less defined in principle than elsewhere, threatens the life of the Tsar and the annihilation of all existing social and political forms. In Austria, Italy, Spain, and England, the public is continually made aware of its operations by the expressed discontent of the working classes and the imminency of revolutions. All right. So now, after this quote, now A.T. Jones continues his article. He's going to sort of sum things up that we've already read. Okay, the things that we have just read, he's in a way going to expound on them. Thus, the ever-spreading spirit of anarchy, he's partly quoting from the above statement, the ever-spreading spirit of anarchy in the presence of which statesmen turn pale and governments tremble is the secret of the movement for the restoration of the papacy. In times of such difficulties as these, it is with peculiar force that the papacy suggests itself to the minds of statesmen as the source of greatest help. Let me stop there just for a moment. I have become aware recently of, as it is said in this video that I watched, you have the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has in his orbit several cardinals, okay? And I can guarantee you, even though I'm not there to witness this, I know from this article and from my experience and my knowledge of the papacy and its workings that these papists are suggesting to Trump, if you would kind of give the Catholic Church a hand and help us in our agenda, we can kind of help you get things straightened out here in America, in the United States of America. Now, Brother Jones continues. He says, in times of anarchy and revolution, when the very foundations of the states and even of society itself seemed to be moved, it is almost instinctively that the European statesmen grasp the hand of the papacy. These leaders get kind of nervous when things get kind of shaky in their country, so they know the papacy itself has gone through revolutions, and so they're confident that the papacy is going to help them out. Okay, so they grasp the hand of the papacy. The papacy has passed through revolution after revolution, and complete anarchy itself is no terror to her. She saw the fall of the Roman Empire, and as that empire was the highest fabric of human greatness ever seen by man, so its fall was the most fearful ever seen in history. Yet the papacy not only passed through and survived it all, but she gathered new strength from it all. When Alaric and Genseric, Goth and Vandal, poured destruction upon the devoted city, the papacy came forth from it with no weakness upon her, and the wrath of the terrible Attila was turned away by the efforts and the personal presence of the Pope. When the flood of barbaric rage swept over all Western Europe, spreading destruction, misery, and anarchy for centuries, instead of disturbing the papacy, it was but her opportunity. The papacy thrives on revolutions. The perplexities of states are her fortune. To her, anarchy is better than order. Okay? The past 4 years under the Biden administration have been a fortune to the papacy. Okay? She thrives on this sort of thing. Therefore, we repeat, when revolution is imminent and anarchy threatens, it is almost instinctively that the European statesman grasps the hand of her who mastered the anarchy of the Middle Ages and the revolutions of 15 centuries. And if England gets out of her dynamite Irish troubles without the help of the papacy, it is more than we expect. We see that then the prophecies reveal a restoration of the papacy. We see the steps already taken in that direction by the two nations principally concerned. We see in the ever-spreading spirit of anarchy the cause which has impelled these nations to these steps, and which, in the nature of the case, must induce others to follow their lead. And all such advances can end in nothing else than the aggrandizement of the papacy and its reassertion of power. For as surely as any person or power enters into negotiations with the papacy upon an equal basis, that person or power will be overreached. Let me stop here just for a moment. That is why that very statement, let me read this again. It says, for as surely as any person or power enters into negotiations with the papacy upon an equal basis, that person or power will be overreached. That goes not only for nations, governments, but also churches. There have been churches that have entered into negotiations with the papacy upon an equal basis. No. You don't do that. You don't enter into negotiations with the papacy upon an equal basis. Okay? The papacy believes it is above you. from the get-go. All right? And if you did enter into any negotiations, it should be that you understand that you operate upon higher principles, heavenly principles, whereas the papacy enters into that negotiation in low principles, devilish, satanic principles. Okay? But you shouldn't enter in negotiations with the papacy, period, ever. If you're going to do that, you may as well enter into negotiations with the devil himself, which the papacy is the devil's right-hand man anyway. So you don't do that. You should never do that because it is guaranteed you will be overreached. Negotiations backed by force may succeed, but not otherwise. Okay, you have to force the papacy. And even then, only but a short time are they going to be successful. Because though a pope may be beaten and die, the papacy lives and works still. We believe Macaulay's words express the literal truth. Quote, "It is impossible to deny that the policy of the Church of Rome is the very masterpiece of human wisdom. The experience of 1,200 eventful years, the ingenuity and patient care of 40 generations of statesmen have improved that polity to such perfection that among the contrivances which have been devised for deceiving and oppressing mankind, it occupies the highest place." Oh, yes. And they've had the experience of 40 generations. Okay? We need the help of God against this powerful power. The statement of the Bible on this point is that it is the mystery of iniquity, Brother Jones says, and that through his policy he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, Daniel 8:25. Craft always has prospered in his hand, and in his present efforts for the renewal of his power, the vast experience in this bad accomplishment will not fail him. For the papacy is only too willing to do its part in this matter. As an instance of this, we may mention that in the matter of the negotiations with Bismarck, the agreement was that if Prussia would revise the May laws, the Pope would then direct the Catholic officials in Germany to show proper obedience to the laws. But he was so willing to show his sincerity in the scheme of reconciliation that he went beyond his part of the agreement and gave the requisite order before the German Parliament had agreed to a revision of the obnoxious laws. This was then used by Bismarck as an effectual answer to those who opposed his bill of suspicion that the Pope was not really sincere. But the papacy would not be itself if it were really sincere in anything else than the one grand object of its own aggrandizement. Let me read that again. But the papacy would not be itself if it were really sincere in anything else than the one grand project of its own aggrandizement. That is all the sincerity that it has ever shown in history. That is all the sincerity it is capable of showing. Yet with all the dreadful history of the papacy before them, not only unapologized for, but prided upon, statesmen and governments are compelled by the ever-spreading spirit of anarchy to shut their eyes to it all and to forget it all, and for their own safety to make firm alliances with the embodiment of that polity, which is the perfection of the contrivances which have been devised for deceiving and oppressing mankind. Because you see, most of the members of the government, whatever government you're talking about, they don't have faith in God. They don't trust in God or in His Word. So in order to retain their power, they will naturally go to the papacy. Ultimately, that is human nature, okay? That is human nature. They will ultimately go to the power that they know has been through all of this before. All right? That's why we're going to have a Sunday law in this country. Yet you got people that say that's a bunch of nonsense, but it's going to happen, okay? When the papacy says to the governments, hey, and to the Protestant churches, unless you take care of these Sabbath keepers, your government's going to fall. What do you think that these governments are going to do? The President of the United States, what do you think he's going to do? He has no faith in God. He is talking to someone who claims to be the voice of God, okay? The Pope and his bishops and his cardinals, okay? They claim to be the oldest church, okay? So you have a president who is ignorant of the Bible and its principles and of the plan of salvation and all of that sort of thing, okay? He's ignorant of all this. He's going to take their word for it. And he's going to be like Herod, who was convinced by Herodias to behead John the Baptist. Because they say to the leaders of the governments, to the president, that these people over here who are standing for Bible truth, they are a danger to your country and to your government. As therefore the spirit of anarchy is the principal cause of these advances toward the renewed recognition of the papacy in national and international affairs, and as this spirit is universal, so we are certain that this recognition of the papacy in one form or another, as best suits it best, will be universal. And we believe what Father O'Reilly stated in The Exact Truth when he said, quote, "The time must come and is coming." This is a Catholic priest saying this. His so-called Father O'Reilly is making this statement. And Brother Jones says, yeah, he's saying the truth when he says this. And this is what he says: the time must come and is coming when the papacy will be formally acknowledged as the institution par excellence, and when both its sovereignty and the means necessary to secure its exercise will be once more placed solemnly under the safeguard of all nations. So he's saying, again, the time must come and is coming when the papacy will be formally acknowledged as the institution par excellence, and when both its sovereignty and the means necessary to secure its exercise will be once more placed solemnly under the safeguard of all nations. Yet, Sister Ellen White spoke truly when she made this statement in Review and Herald of December 21st, 1897. In this time of prevailing iniquity, the Protestant churches that have rejected a "Thus saith the Lord" will reach a strange pass. They will be converted to the world. In their separation from God, they will seek to make falsehood and apostasy from God the law of the nation. They will work upon the rulers of the land to make laws to restore the lost ascendancy of the man of sin, who sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. The Roman Catholic principles will be taken under the protection of the state. The protest of Bible truth will no longer be tolerated by those who have not made the law of God their rule of life. Again, that's Review and Herald, December 21st, 1897. We believe it because it is in accordance with the Scripture, which says, all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Then can she indeed say in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow. Revelation 18:7. And as sure as the sure word of prophecy itself, just so surely will there be persecution. The papacy is ever the same. The disposition to root out heresy is the same in all places and in all ages. All that is now lacking is the power, and when that shall be restored to her, then will be fulfilled the prophecy. The same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them, that horn being the papacy, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. But it will not be long, for just at the time when she, because of her restoration to preference and power, is glorifying herself, is living deliciously, and congratulating herself, saying in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Just then, and therefore, shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. Revelation 18:7 and 8. The restoration of the papacy is the one great event that stands between the world and the judgment. That's the answer to the question of the title of this study. The restoration of the papacy is the one great event that stands between the world and the judgment. That restoration is now in progress. The elements are ripe that will assure its accomplishment. War upon the saints is impending, and the time that the saints possess the kingdom is at the doors. And so that is the end of that article by A.T. Jones in the Signs of the Times, August 5th, 1886. And to emphasize this, I want to read Daniel chapter 7, verses 21 and 22 and 25 to 27. This is why I say that this is a subject of Bible prophecy. The prophet Daniel said, I beheld, and the same horn, the papacy, made war with the saints and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Daniel 7, 21, 22, and 25 through 27. That is what is standing between the world and the judgment. And we are not far away from the restoration of the papacy. The United States of America will restore to the papacy its power. And then immediately after its power is restored, persecution will then erupt upon the faithful of God. If you agree with this presentation, If you appreciate this type of content, then by all means tap that like button so that it can be sent far and wide to those who are hungering and thirsting for truth. And if you have any questions or comments, then place them at the bottom of this video. And if you haven't subscribed, we would highly encourage you to do so. Thank you for joining us here at Jewels of Truth. We hope and pray that you will have a good day in the Lord.